Good evening, everyone, and welcome to IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective, and your premier news program for practical spiritual advice in your everyday life. The holiday season is upon us, and appropriately, we've decided to focus tonight on a very relevant topic. In a way, it's not so much the news, although family is really our daily news, whether we want it to be or not. But family is absolutely at the heart of this beautiful holiday season. So tonight we thought we would give you the opportunity to look at family from the spiritual perspective, what role it plays in our spiritual journey, and how best we might be able to approach family, both for healing, for growth, for love, and also then to have the best, most loving and beautiful holiday season we've ever had. So without further ado, go ahead down below already now, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, like tonight's video, and share it with others so that they might be able to elevate their experience of the holiday season. And be sure to follow us on all other social media channels, ikya.official. And we will go right over to the teaching with IKYA by asking IKYA, what is family really? If we look at the role family plays in our spiritual journey, tell us a little bit about that.
Family is a lot of different things, really. You know, when we look at it traditionally, it was your biology. It was your cluster of individuals sharing your DNA, your genetics, and for that to be in competition with the rest of the world. Now, we have evolved a little since then, hopefully. And as humans, I often say today that the families we choose are more important than the family we grew up in. And, you know, we will unpack that a little bit. But think of family as a space or group or cluster where you are working on your karma. And just like in the old days where maybe, you know, during the course of your entire life you would meet 50 people. Now you can meet that before lunch, right? So it's a very different world. And when you think of the main purpose of the family being a space of working out karma, we need mirrors. We need people who understand us, and we need people who can annoy the shit out of us. Because that is how we move into awareness of why we are here. When we think of the concept of family, most people will think of the kind of Hallmark movie, you know, oh, love and support and comfort and everyone just being together and no conflict whatsoever. There's a reason why we have so many fantasies around this, because it's a fantasy. It's never like this. Family is your office of karma that you are mostly in denial of. Because when we have karma that we're not really good at working on, we need people who constantly remind us of it. So how it works. Now, think of your whole existence as being completely kind of tailor-made. It starts with your consciousness and you being a spiritual being of consciousness in a state of oneness. Let's just use that as a starting point. And then there will be strings that are out of tune. There will be areas where you have resistance to your own flow and to reality. And what you vibrate, whenever there is something being shown to you spiritually that this is a distance, you are vibrating something, you are in a state of consciousness that is now different from reality, that will immediately turn into this. I oversimplify, but this is basically how you turn into incarnation. So, if you think of there are trillions of different kind of factors involved, it's dimension, you know, there are unlimited dimensions. Then you have universes. And just think of how big this universe is. We probably have trillions of galaxies. and then you choose this one, right? And there are billions of stars in this galaxy, and you choose this solar system, and you choose this planet, you choose this life form, this timeline, down to country, family, genetics, and there's you. So, wherever you are, that's the result of what you are vibrating, your exact karma, what you're studying. So when you have so many different options, and you gradually become more and more and more specialized until you end up here in this little speck of dust, which is this planet. You have a lot in common with everybody else. And you will have a lot of common karmically with your family, with your community, and everyone you interact with. Because vibration and consciousness act as coordinates in how you materialize and how you incarnate. So when it comes to family, you choose them very specifically for them carrying the same type of karma you do. They are studying the same things you are, but from a slightly different angle. Everything in the universe is group effort. It's ecosystems, it's group effort, it's clusters, it's families, and many different variations. Spiritually, you also belong to clusters, which you may think of as a huge family, and you incarnate together. And a cluster may consist of several thousand beings, but you incarnate in different constellations all over the place. So you may study yourself in the universe from very specific angles. And of course, just like, when you go to the university, you end up in the same class as the people studying the same subjects, right? If you study physics, you will end up in a class of students studying physics, right? You will not end up in ballet class. You will end up in physics class. And those you will have a lot in common with, because you will be studying together, working together. It's the same thing in life. So your family or your families are your study buddies. They are your fellow students. And the most annoying thing about it is that they often represent aspects of your karma that you are unaware of. In group work, we have our strengths, right? We have what we bring in. And those are the things we are aware of. What other people are bringing in will be what they are aware of, but maybe you are not. All group efforts, all group work is this. So, they will show you aspects of yourself and your karma and your resistance and your patterns and behaviors that you may not be aware of. But because you are so kind of specific in studying the same type of karma and principles in the universe, because you ended up in the same room, literally, you have a lot in common, right? And it means that, that mirroring will be quite intense. And you will have no way to protect yourself from it, which is the whole point of it. So it will trigger you, right? And how we become aware of our own resistance is, and this is basically becoming aware of our own resistance, is becoming aware of what we have yet to learn in the universe. It is basically the cycle of us believing that, I figured it out, this is working fine, and then all of a sudden something happens that will show us that it's not fine, it's not working. We bump into something, which means that first we cause injury to ourselves. And then we believe that there is something wrong with the world because according to my map, this should be working and it's not. So we will be attacking and criticizing the world. But over time, we injure ourselves and others so much that we'll begin to understand, oh, right, I have to change myself. When that happens, the healing begins. That may take a while, as we all know. And then through that healing process, we learn what we need to change in ourselves to be in harmony with life and how to make that work, how to make that principle work. For most humans, this is completely subconscious. They have no idea what's going on, but this is what's going on. And when we then get that insight and we get a little wiser, the transformation begins. And we begin to become that individual. This is what we normally refer to as spiritual transcendence, where you're able to then expand beyond your current space and understanding, and you have a clear insight. And then the process begins of becoming that person where you live it, where it's just like who you are. In that process, to be aware of you being out of tune, it's much more efficient if you are with beings that are also studying this, are in the same types of denials and types of resistance. When you're placed in the same room, it begins, because there will be denials and conflicts around the same principles mirrored in other people, which means instead of just trying to attack the universe, that's not very helpful. You attack each other. There will be conflicts. There will be, a willingness to stay in the conflict, because being in a family means also that you have attachments to them. Biologically, for your own survival, all of that, which means that, you're tied together, and then you will have to live through the conflicts, meaning that hopefully you'll get wiser. You will learn from each other, because it's group work. You're basically studying the same things in different ways. So it's a wonderful way of amplifying our own studies, because if not, if you think of you just being by yourself on your own spiritual journey and there's nobody there, it will take a long time for you to burst your bubble of having the thought that I've figured out how the universe works, right? When people annoy us, it's because they're poking at something. And our first instinct will always be resistance and denial. And then we attack and do all of that. But at the end of it, we mature. We become wiser. And this is really the purpose of family. It's a workspace. Your family members are colleagues. And you're basically there to fight it out. And the transformation, whenever you transform, it turns into love. So in families where they work efficiently on their karma, there will be a lot of love. It doesn't mean that there will be no conflicts, because whenever we look at any karma in ourselves, there will be conflicts. So there may be a lot of conflicts, but also a lot of love. And you can see that in the families, but one minute they just want to hug it out and they love each other, and the next moment they just want to kill each other, right? And that's really what families are for. So we need this in order to be completely mirrored, to be confronted, and to be poked at. And it's not just your biological family. Today we choose our families. Right? We can choose our friends, we meet people, we build our tribes. We have pets, and they're also part of the families. We have partners in relationships, and we go between kind of different spaces that contain different groups. And this also means that often the biological family means less, because we can approach different spaces where we can be mirrored in different ways. So we can work on the kind of multitude of levels in ourselves, in our minds, and then have a more kind of full experience of ourselves. We're moving between different spaces where we have different sets of mirrors and interactions and clusters. And this is what life is. Right? So it's always been like that. When you're with a certain group, you become a different version of yourself. And then you can explore that. Right? And when you're with other people, you become a little bit more like that. And you will explore that part. It doesn't mean that you will not be confronted, because you will always be in dialogue with yourself. But think of the function of family as being a workspace where you become more aware of your karma, and you also get mirrored in such a way that you're triggered into learning and healing. And we have so many opportunities today to establish a multitude of families. And people who don't, they are really missing out. So it's something we also need to try to build for ourselves and to become much more aware of. We have a question?
Yes, we have our first question in the audience.
So I run into a few people that have done growth work for real or spiritual work where it has been a lot of conflict in the family, but it seems like the family keeps on doing the conflict, but it doesn't touch them anymore. And it seems like they feel just disconnected or alienated. At what time or how will it then be good just to move on and find your own different group to work with?
Right. Now, this is an interesting question because many people today, if they are involved with growth work, or even if they just want to find their own path and express themselves like beyond the definitions of the family, that is okay. Because we have so many opportunities today to be mirrored, to study ourselves and to study the universe. It's not limited to our families. So if you feel that your family is making you too uncomfortable, seek other people and other groups where you can enter this type of kind of working relationship, right? In families, yes, you have the group study. And sometimes that can stay in a kind of certain, just like, a class will be on a certain level. And sometimes you will be studying more quickly. So you basically leave that class, just like when you have advanced students or advanced kids, right? Sometimes they're able to plow through that year's curriculum because they're smarter or whatever, and then they will just go on. So when you have kind of gifted kids, they will normally not just stay in their class, they will also move on, right? It's the same type of situation. So sometimes you experience that, yeah, I've actually outgrown the family template. I've outgrown this level of working with my karma, and all I get is like an old echo of things I've already learned. This happens a lot today because we have the opportunity on this planet to grow faster. Right? Remember in the old days, just a few generations ago, when you incarnated into a family or a place, you would normally spend your entire life in that family, in that place, right? You were born on a farm, and you would live on that farm. If you got married, if you were a woman, often you would marry someone on the next farm, right? It wasn't very advanced. And you would just be around the same people, and nothing really happened. So you would stay in one space. It's because the consciousness on this planet was lower. It was slower, and that reflected the consciousness of people at that time. Since then, things are speeding up, and it is increasing, it is accelerating. But for many people incarnate, they kind of still incarnate in that way. They want to be in the same space. They are not learning very fast, so they're still in resistance, which means they stay in the same conflicts. And I'm sure many of you have observed, both in your families and maybe other places, that are a lot of people that have a tendency to stay in the same conflict for decades, right? It may also be played out differently. For instance, when they have their family and they have their colleagues, or whatever, but they stay in the same conflicts because ultimately it's a conflict they have with life. It's life showing them that, yeah, your assumptions about what is real is not quite there. And life will continue to kind of give them information, but they can't seem to learn, right? This is normal, and most people are still operating that way, meaning, again, they stay in the same space their entire life. When we are on a spiritual path, we're trying to achieve the opposite. It's basically looking at our family as a starting point, as a backdrop, right? So we want to see how far away from this can we go. It's not about leaving your family, it's about leaving the conflicts and evolving and maturing and learning from your family, learning from what are we studying together, and then learn, have the insights, transform, grow, become a better person, and then move on. And that is what we should be looking for. But of course then, we will be faced with the challenge of how do I interact with these people, right? Because I'm not the same anymore. And that opens a whole different approach to healing that we'll also get into. Now, one thing that I will also just mention before we take more questions is that why it is so difficult to get, to kind of let go of family trauma. I'm sure many of you have experienced that. When it comes to like friends, colleagues, other people, it's easier for you to take responsibility. It's easier for you to let go of whatever, if there is a conflict, this is my responsibility, right? This is my stuff. I can see what you're doing, I can see what I'm doing, and sure, you're right. And I need to learn from this, right? That is so much easier with everyone who's not in your family. And the reason is quite interesting. And it's because as a child, you're not responsible. As a child, you're shown that your parents will take care of you. If you have older siblings, they're also responsible. You're not responsible for your own survival. You get food, you get shelter, you get love, people take care of you. All your needs are being met by others. And you'll learn that it's their responsibility because they are showing you that it's their responsibility to take care of you. Now, that's all wonderful, but it kind of fucks up your brain in a way that you're hardwired to think that all your needs, all your feelings, because think of like when you're hungry, that's really a pain signal. You're hungry, well, mommy's gonna make you a sandwich, right? So, the brain does not differentiate between emotional pain and physical pain. So all your needs are basically pain signals. So emotional needs are also pain signals. And because you're now hardwired to believe that it's their responsibility, you have no experience of taking responsibility. So you grow up and you're then hardwired to believe that whatever you feel, whenever it's painful, whenever you need something, it's their responsibility. And of course, at some point, the family will expect you to take responsibility. And then you have this struggle because, no, it's not my responsibility. This is your job. Think of teenagers, right? They want their freedom, but they still want money. They still want, the parents to fix everything because it's their job. It's their responsibility. They can do absolutely whatever they want to, right? They can be the most horrific version of a human being, and they still expect their parents to take care of everything because we are hardwired to believe this. So, as adults, we continue the same pattern. In the old days, when we go back, kids were put to work. They had to provide for the family in that age where the brain was still growing. So they had to work on the farm. They had to be part of kind of the family organization, the family kind of business, whatever it was, right? And that would make them feel responsible. But now, it doesn't happen. So, whenever you feel there are unresolved stuff, traumas, whatever it is, you will immediately assume it's your family's responsibility. It's their fault, right? Just like if you are hungry as a child and your parents don't feed you, it's their fault. So your brain is stuck in this way of thinking. So whenever you feel or think or connect with something that is unresolved in your family, you're programmed to believe it's their fault. And then you project that, and then you feel entitled and you have expectations. And when you then go home for Christmas, right, now, and you have all these emotional needs, and the least they can do is to give you that. And of course they don't, because they're busy with their own pain points, believing it's your responsibility or someone else's, because it's whenever it's family, we all project this in. So with other people, you've not established this pattern. So then you can more easily look at yourself and your own behavior, because your thought initially is not that, oh, it's all their responsibility. You can see that, yeah, I got some responsibility too. And this is why it's so much easier to deal in a way with conflicts and differences we experience with other people, and why when it comes to family, all of a sudden you have emotional tantrums like a 5-year-old. So recognizing this means that you also have to practice taking responsibility for yourself. Also when it comes to family, and see that this is not a very productive hardwiring of the brain, right? But it takes effort to set your family free from your expectations and needs and everything that's not working in your life. And think of also how psychology has turned it into an industry, blaming your family, right? Supporting that narrative that, yeah, it is their fault. Yeah, they should have treated you better. It's not true. And when you project responsibility for your needs and well-being onto other people, you create a false expectation that can never be met, because it's not their responsibility. It is not. And when we learn to take responsibility for our own journey and say, no matter what happens, you are responsible for the healing. So, we can learn to think of it as in a childish way and say, what? Other people are responsible for injuring you. That is how we become aware of our karma. Then it's our job to heal. So whenever someone injures you, say thank you, because they are helping you experience the dissonance between you and the world. So the injury is not the problem. That's the start of you becoming aware of your own discrepancies and your own dissonance. So it is the job of others, it's their gift to injure you physically, emotionally, mentally, in your expectations, in your job, in whatever, because it's how you begin to relate to your own resistance, your own conflicts with the world. And then it's your responsibility to heal. In our culture, we have established a way of thinking that is kind of the opposite. I should be able to do just whatever and injure and, be a harmful human being, and then other people should heal me. Right? It doesn't work. It never happens. So we play the victim. Of course we do. Because that, by being a victim, we have the right to feel entitled. But we get stuck because we never heal that way. So when we understand that We incarnate with others so we can receive the gift of injury in different ways. And your family, that's what they do. It's not all they do, but it's a big part of what they do. It's their job. It's part of the group effort. We poke at each other's dissonance because as the family unit, we notice when someone's out of tune and we attack it. So everybody will become more aware of how they are out of tune. And that causes manifestations and all of that. But again, just learn this kind of, make it a rule for yourself and remind yourself, I need other people to injure me so I can begin the healing process. And the healing process is not about the injury. The healing is you healing your consciousness, healing your misunderstandings about how the universe works, so you can expand your awareness. That is the healing. But we need it also as humans in the form of manifestation. And manifestation will always be linked to information and consciousness. So by interacting with the discrepancies, the imbalances, the injuries, and the attempt of kind of healing and restoring, that will bring us on track to true spiritual healing. So healing is your job exclusively. Nobody else can heal you because it's the expansion of your awareness. But they can injure you. So kind of learn, I hope you can understand that this is actually what's going on. Being injured is the greatest gift. It's how we trigger the process of building awareness. So family trauma is so important. But understanding that this is what's going on and this is, how it is, what belongs to you and what belongs to them. But through psychology and like this kind of wishful thinking hallmark approach to life, we believe that other people should heal us. And that when they admit that they're wrong, that I will heal. It never happens. It doesn't change anything. So we need to learn to take 100% responsibility for our own journey and our own dialogue with life. And also show that life will show us what we need to study through the interactions with other people and through the injury and hurt they cause us. It is the greatest gift. So family is a gift. And the more they injure you, the more kind of textbooks they share with you. Because often how they injure you is part of their own pain. Back to group work. It's like handing down the textbooks. I've read this book, you should read it too. These are my pains, I will now project them onto you. It's why you incarnate with them, because they have a library of pain. And that library of pain will be the exact kind of model of your own karma, making it so much easier to manifest and for you to study yourself. When you can see this, the family karma becomes so interesting. And everything you hate about your family, you may look at as wonderful gifts. Because we incarnate together because we're not able to reach ourselves. We always believe that we're perfect. That our maps are true. And we need other people to show us that, no, this is not working. And then we have to go through that whole cycle of denial and, fighting and all of that until we actually learn. So, healing is exclusively your responsibility and your journey. The hurt and the pain and the injury, that is what other people are supposed to give you. Isn't family fun?
All right, we have another question in the audience.
I believe the karma is one of our small mountains. We always injure ourselves with in the daily tasks, and the family is in a great help for excelling these kind of problems. And you also said something earlier on this lecture that the cluster family with the job and colleagues and all of them are studying the same, and we are maybe all approaching the same mountains of karma, and we are experts, as you say, to just go around the mountains and not trying to get up these small mountains. How can we be more clever when you see that we are getting injured and the healing process? How can we? How can you know that you are trying to heal a little situation by yourself or with your children or your parents and things like that? So the healing process is real, and you are getting to the next phase of the situation.
Now, the answer to that is very simple, but humans find this difficult for some reason, because humans have a collective addiction to suffering. I've talked about this extensively before, so we'll not go into this now, but humans are so attached to the idea of suffering. Now, think of karma as simply what you have not learned yet about yourself and the universe. It's everything you haven't studied. And of course, every time you study something you don't understand, it will be different from what you already believe. Right? Think of you going to the university, and every time the teacher is telling you something, you protest. Is it, no, that's not what I think it is. Why would you be there? Right? You approach studies because you want to learn. Now, as a child, however, it's different. You may not understand the gift of school or anything else because it's not in you, so it will be forced. Maybe you'll be forced to play the piano and you hate it. As you grow up, you'll love it, right? Because we have so much resistance. So, how we start always in a space where we study our karma is that we don't want it. There's a reason why we haven't learned something already, and it's because we believe that what is true to us subjectively is true. But because evolution only goes one way, think of if something works for you and you stand still, the universe will still move on. And you see this also in biological evolution, right? You may have a life form that is perfectly adapted to its environment, and that can go on for 1,000,000 years. And then, for certain reasons, the environment is changing, and their habitat is changing, which means they cannot just go on doing what they do because that's not working. They will have to migrate or change or learn to adapt. And it's through resistance, right? Because we don't want to change, but the world is forcing us to. So, in the lower consciousness, this is how we grow also spiritually. That there are changes in our environment and then we're forced to adapt. And if we don't, we die. And then we learn that. And then we kind of just do it again and again. And gradually we will move on. Now, just like a child, growing up, and at some point maybe you'll find your interest, right? Maybe you have a passion for something and you want to learn. This is fun. It might be in sports, it might be, science or, music or arts, whatever it is. But you have a passion for it. And then you want to learn, and you take what the teacher is giving you, what's in the textbook or whatever, and you learn. And you can't wait to learn more. You have no resistance because you relate to what is shown to you as, yeah, this is what I want to learn. When you go to that point spiritually, everything changes. And this is what we're talking about here, is that for most people, because humans are not very advanced. They are still only willing to grow when they are forced to. Change in environment. That life is showing you and others that life does not work exactly how you think it should. And then you fight. So you fight with the world, you fight with yourself, you fight with others. Like it's always that. Because you don't want to change and you want to hold on to your beliefs. And yet life is showing you, no, it's not how it works. You have to adapt. But at some point, often when we have started the journey of spiritual work, we begin to understand that, oh, what we think of as karma is simply what I haven't learned yet. And if the spiritual journey is about becoming an expert, right, and to really understand ourselves and the universe and existence overall, and that's what I want. I want to figure out what I don't know. And it's probably way beyond what I can imagine. And obviously it's something completely different from what I believe now, because otherwise I would already kind of be there, and I'm not. Right? It's basically saying that I want to learn how to play the piano, and you sit down in front of it and you don't know how to play it. But you're highly motivated because you really want to. And then you study. Right? So you move past that resistance of learning. But when you don't even understand that you exist in your incarnations to learn, to become the full version of yourself, you will resist it. Right? So this is kind of the big shift in consciousness that happens, where we begin to seek our karma. We seek the discussion. We seek to find out, what am I misunderstanding? What is beyond my current knowledge? And then you want to learn. And you understand that life is in this complete dialogue with you all the time. And life will show you also through little things where you may improve, what you may change, how you can tune this, how this may become a kind of truer expression, how you may adapt in this thing and this thing and this thing. So it's not just through the big events. It's also through the daily life of everything in life constantly giving you clues. But you're there for it because you want to study, so you're paying attention. But again, in the human culture so far, the collective humans have no idea even why we incarnate. Humans are still in denial of the fact that we are incarnating, that we are living consciousness incarnating into the human life form. There's no collective understanding of this yet, right? So then you only have that kind of passive evolution where you're kind of dragged along due to changes that you are resisting. So part of awakening spiritually is this shift, where you realize, oh, I'm here to study. And the studies are basically about me becoming me in a world that is true. And that's a lot more fun than dragging our feet and living in suffering, right? So this is the shift I'm trying to assist people with. Because once you get to that shift, everything becomes fascinating and interesting. And when you're injured, you just see, oh, right, okay, this is where I need to go now. This is what I'm healing. And you love the healing. You love the injuries. You love the dialogue with life. And you appreciate all of it because you want to learn. Right?
I was just reminded of a saying that says that your friends are God's way of apologizing to you for your family. But we're talking a lot about poking and healing, and I'd love to talk about the flip side of that. I'm a grandfather now. I have 6 little grandchildren, and I'm learning so much about being a presence in their life, and I'm learning about unconditional love, and being able to represent that. And I see that also as a real opportunity for me to grow, and hopefully for them as well to have that in their lives.
Yes. Now, the unconditional stuff, like in spiritual work, We talk a lot about unconditional love. Most humans have no idea what that is because they live in a conditional reality and they're supposed to. Because again, when we have that much resistance and we don't know why we're here, everything will have to be conditional for us to do anything. Everything is transactional. And again, when we only are willing to change when we're forced to, basically meaning that this is too painful. So now I'm willing to move, not because I have to, because I'm perfect, but just to get away from this, right? That is how the conditional part works. And remember also that we, in the beginning, in the lower consciousness, we only understand ourselves through others. Because we have no idea who we are. We only understand who we are by how we react to the world around us. Right? It's through your reactions that we go, oh, I like this, I don't like that. Oh, yeah, this is what I think. This is what I think is wrong. So we learn about ourselves only through our reactions. So we need people to cause reactions because we have only a passive way of understanding, right? And we become the person that is the summary of what we are reacting to. So when we're with a certain group of people, this is also why we become different versions, because we become what we react to. So let's say that, in a family, there's only green, and you react to green, you will identify as green. Maybe you are blue. Right? So back to the environment, and you becoming your environment. And how you see yourself will simply be based on what you react to, and how you then understand, I like this, I don't like that. So, in the low state of consciousness, this is how it works. It's all passive. Now, that is not unconditional. So often when people say, oh, I love you unconditionally, no, it's not what's going on. It's still based on liking someone, being attached to them, feeling that you need them, all of that, which is fine. Now, as you begin to know yourself, and through spiritual work and awakening, you begin living more from the inside, you realize, there is something else. I am not the projected me. I'm not that. There is something else, right? And we all get to that point. And more people on this planet, they are experiencing that. There is that kind of interactional part of us that the brain relates to, but there is something else that is authentic and true, never changes. And we recognize, oh, this is it. But we have no idea what it is. And we want to test it out. But that means that we can relate to our kind of reactionary person. And we can say, oh, right, this is a form, this is a format, this is where I study. This is my school uniform, but it's not me. And when we begin to then let go of the school uniform, and we can still be in it, but we understand, right, I'm something authentic beyond it. Then we begin to think, oh, well, that means that other people are also that. Because you turn people into what you react to in them. Think of how you define people. You only see what you react to. It's shocking how primitive humans are. But when you think of this, think of how you define people, your understanding of them is solely based on what you have reacted to in them. The rest is invisible to you. Because what you react to is what is useful to you in your own narratives, in your own understanding of the world and yourself, based on your own templates, what you like, what you don't like, this or that. And then when you don't react to something, and so you have no idea it's even there, because the brain only relates to what it reacts to. And it builds these narratives and stories to connect everything you have ever reacted to, including other people. So your understanding of someone is solely based on what you have reacted to in that person. And then that person becomes that to you, a mirror for those specific things. So that you externalize your own mind, your own karma, your own conflicts in these different people, right? It's your own soap opera, so you need all the different characters because you react to different things in different people. And you tell a different story about each person. So you never see them. You see their outfits, right? You see your karmic exchange. But once you begin to connect to awakening inside, you can also start seeing this happening. So, well, if there is something authentic, real in me that's got nothing to do with this, that is also the case in everybody else. And not just humans, animals, trees, flowers, birds, whatever it is. And you begin to connect to that. And you realize, oh, there's something universal here, which means you can have a deep, meaningful connection to a tree. The same way you can have to a person. Is that, well, it feels the same. The communication is the same. Once I take away the words, it is the same. This means that the tree is authentically a presence of consciousness. There is someone there. Just like I'm someone, they are someone, the person is someone. And they begin to realize that there's something completely different going on. We're all students taking different courses, different levels, but we're still the same. And then you may begin to love unconditionally. Because it's basically past the karmic studies and the karmic matrix. And when you do that with family, when you set them free from your own karmic matrix of reactions and expectations and all of that, you may begin to see them as who they are, right? Without their school uniforms, without their karmic matrix. And you recognize that, oh, right. My dad was a complete asshole and, did all these terrible things. Well, that's just what he's studying in his reactions to his own studies. Beyond that, I can see that there is a spiritual being. And this is just him doing what he's not good at. And you can begin to see it. And then the love comes. Because we need to remember, it's so important when it comes to family and everybody else, that we recognize that we all incarnate to do things we have no idea how to do and to learn about things we don't understand. Right? When you take an education, it's that. Right? You're trying to develop skills you don't have and try to learn things you don't understand. And you behave accordingly. I always say when you want to learn how to play the piano, you fail 100% of the time. Every time you play, you fail. That is learning. And yet we expect humans to behave as if they're qualified, as if they know what they're doing. That's not why we are here, because it means that we wouldn't be learning. So we're all behaving like complete idiots most of the time. And if you think a concert pianist having an expectation towards a child learning how to play the piano, the judgment and the curse words and, what a fucking idiot. Again and again and again. He can't play it right. He hasn't learned how to do it yet. We need to learn to observe ourselves and others from this perspective. We only incarnate to build skills we don't have. Well, we fail 100% of the time. When we are here to study things we don't understand, we fail 100% of the time. That is what learning and studying is. And you need to give yourself that space and other people that space. But again, based on your expectation and how we're hardwired to expect the family to take care of us, we expect people to know what they're doing. We expect, especially in the family, for them to have like it all figured out. And it's not why we're here. Right? So look at your own life journey. And obviously, like when we fall flat on our faces, it's a sign that we're doing it right. Because it means that we're interacting with something we don't understand. When we are afraid to fail, we stop learning. Right? Because then it's about doing it perfectly. Yeah, it means you can't learn anymore. Right? So the idea of something perfect is completely stupid. Because it means it's like when Trump is taking a cognitive test and he's acing it because he can name an elephant. It's that. Because when you're afraid of failing, you will have to keep yourself on a low level. Advancing spiritually means loving mud on your face. Loving to just do stuff and see what happens. And you will fail and fail and fail. But you don't see it that way. You see it as you trying. That you're exploring, figuring things out. And when you interact with things you don't know, you will figure it out. Everything we do, we get better at. Right? So learning to goof around, to just do stuff and not be perfect and not expect that of ourselves, but also not expect of others. And learn also in families to see that everyone's trying to figure out something they don't understand. And we're all different. We incarnate also together because you are bringing in what you have figured out. And when we are studying huge karmic complexes, we will have understood something that other people don't. And then what we do as humans, immediately we use that as leverage to judge others. While we can't see the wisdom in others. Right? We need to do the opposite. We need to see the attempts. See that on this planet it's one family because we're on the same fucking planet. Although there are more planets and dimensions than there are numbers. So the fact that we are here means that, yeah, we're somewhat studying the same things. We should be our own support group. You know, we need to be loving and supportive and recognize that, yeah, we're not that different. So at least in our own families. But setting other people free from our expectations and kind of love their journey as well and to see it. It's back to what you're talking about. This is how we begin to love unconditionally because we set ourselves free from condition. We set other people free from that and we can see what's behind it. And then it's always beautiful. It's always healing. It's always fascinating because you begin to see past what they're not able to do and you start relating to what they're actually trying to learn.
Going to church on Christmas is a big tradition in Norway. I was in a concert yesterday in the church, and one of the the conductor was explaining the text and the psalm the old concert was about, and I noticed one word, and he said that God incarnated into Jesus because he wanted to experience to be a human. And I feel also the church has not said that. I have never heard those words from a priest. This was the conductor. So I feel the religion and the church, that is also part of our family. Can you just say a little bit
of it?
Well,
it's basically, when you look at, we're all of us, no matter life form, where we are, we're all here for the same reason. It's trying to figure out who we are and where we are and why. And so when you look at human religions and spirituality and science and everything, it's just like we're trying to figure it out. Everything is valid. And we need then also to recognize that we are in different levels of consciousness. We have different needs. Because we have different backstories, right? We may be comfortable with certain belief systems. And we will stay in a certain belief system for as long as we feel that it's something we can grow into. Religions can offer explanations and models. For some people, yeah, it makes sense, because that's how much they can take. And then we move on, right? And we need to have a completely kind of open relationship to everything. Is that when something exists, it's because somebody needs it. And everything is just stepping stones, and all of us trying to figure it out. But yes, this way of talking is, very kind of established as storytelling in many spiritual traditions, right? And that's probably where he got it from, because people are today, also in religion, much more open-minded, right? But it's not just Jesus. If you think of it as a model, it's all of us. Because ultimately, we're all God. We're all part of it. So it means that through the entire creation, that is how God or oneness incarnates itself to experience itself. It wouldn't be enough to do that through one being. Everything in existence is that. And I think this is where religions have room for improvement. Recognizing that the divinity in everything and everyone. And when you have these religious characters, saying that, yeah, they can represent a model for divinity in us, but it's all of us. We are all like that. And it's our job to wake up to it and learn what it means to be in a spiritual consciousness while still in human form. But I'm happy also to see on this planet that many people in religion are becoming more kind of open, and they're also absorbing ideas and thoughts and stories from modern spirituality or other traditions. It's part of where we are now, right? We just like food. We're not just eating food from the country we were born into, whatever. We eat food from all over the world. We need to learn from each other. And if there's something or a model or a thought that can give us something that can be a stepping stone, we should use that. And there are a lot of wonderful things in religion. And we can learn from that. The rest, okay. Just like when you go to a buffet, you don't have to eat everything. Eat what you like. And that will make you happy. If you don't have to eat the stuff you don't like. And I think that this is how we can approach cultures and religion. And when we gravitate towards something, it's because there is something there. And there is beauty everywhere, right? But we are free to interpret and reinterpret and use whatever in whatever way we want to. Just like, there is, like, for instance, when it comes to Italian food, many Italians have this, like, there's only one way to make it. And often when Italians go to the States, they lose their minds over how Americans make Italian, because it's not really Italian, right? In Italy, there are even people who mean like there's only one type of pizza that is real pizza. And it's like, shut up, right? It's just people can take whatever and reinvent it, and it becomes much more fun and interesting. So when we do it with food, we can do it with everything, right? So I think especially when it comes to spirituality, we need to have the same approach, right? If we find joy in a system, belief system, a way of thinking, or whatever, well, that can do something for us. It can help us open up, right? Because just like food, it's not having a dish that's made the right way. It's like, does it make you happy, right? Is it the best meal ever? It doesn't, that's what matters. Are we sharing it with friends? It's not like, is it made the right way, right? So Also, when it comes to spiritual work, it's so important that we are curious and inquisitive, and we just like do whatever, right? And look for beauty everywhere. Look for truth everywhere. Even in our own families, sometimes it may be grains of gold, you know?
Well, I grew up with a very old aunt in the family, Elsa, and she was such a fresh wind. And she was 90, and when she died, we really lost that anchor point of something different than being like a family, always similar, and this is the way we do it. So she broke all traditions. And then later in life, I had the joy of inviting friends for Christmas and mixed them with my sons and my husband's sons. And that broke much faster the pattern of our sons being children. They grew up in an evening to a different Christmas, and how that is different to the mind, how we behave when other people are around, not only the parents. I thought that was really interesting pattern that they broke.
But this is also interesting, you know, when we include something else in a space that is established, because this is really how evolution works. The environment changes, and especially when we have established environments, because that's always a shock to the system. And then our survival patterns will pull us into whatever we feel or see as beneficial for our own survival in that space. So working that way is always very productive spiritually. And also do that in other spaces in our lives. And really see how can we take, whenever we're kind of stuck, include something new in that space, because the brain will not move from that space. It's then making the space move, right? And that will start doing its magic. So we're never stuck, really. We're just repeating. And we can decide that I don't have to. I can, whenever we bring something new into it, it kind of breaks the whole thing. And sometimes it's fun to see that we can then change and transform so quickly once we just allow ourselves to. Right? This is also fun with family. And sometimes, you know, when somebody married and, you know, there's a new family dynamic, sometimes that can transform everything, right? And it's necessary. And for instance, today also, it's fun to see, for instance, when, you know, you have people marrying from different cultures, ethnicities, and all that, and see how that can influence a family, right? And that is fun. We all need to kind of break free from all of these old patterns and settings, because, you know, this is where family goes stale, where we feel I've outgrown my family, because it's basically just repetition, right? But when we bring something in that can, you know, crack that mold, it becomes so much fun. And also see how family members may be forced to change, you know, but really see it as, well, this is a spiritual journey, right? It's also our job to then bring something in when we can see that there's too much repetition.
We also had the joy of being so many that I found out I could never make that Christmas dinner on my own. So I had to break my own tradition.
Right, yeah.
So I made in small notes, and everyone could pick a task. And that, you know, I love community work, and that way of organizing turned the whole day into something completely else.
Yeah.
So the importance of chores for children, can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, but this is also, as I briefly talked about, it's that programming where kids today believe that the family is responsible, right? We are supposed to, from a very early age, to be productive in a way that kind of provides for the family. Throughout evolution, that's been the case. It's a new thing where we say, oh, kids should just be kids and live in a fantasy. Normally, you don't get a good human that way. You get an entitled human, which we can see in our culture now. It's a terrible experiment that has gone wrong, and we need to get back to, you know, a different way of bringing our kids to maturity. But for kids to have chores and be part of what the family does and connect them to the survival and productivity of the family as a unit is extremely important, because it also creates a sense of value. You know, as I've talked about many times, the only value we have is the value we actually bring. And it's not like we just have value because we exist. Value is a transactional concept. And it means that we have to bring value. We have to add value to other people's lives. And that's the value we actually have. So when we feel that we don't have any value, it's because we don't. We always then need to look at, in what way am I adding value to other people's lives? And when we do, we feel we have value because that transaction is real. So for kids, it's also a way therefore to build self-esteem. We are supposed to feel bad about ourselves when we're not adding value. And when we reach the age of 7 or 8, in the old days, that's when you started working. So when we don't have kind of productive work and we don't build that self-esteem, we will feel less valuable. And remember also, the world is so complex today. It's difficult to, like, what am I supposed to do? How can I, bring value? Because it's very difficult. When the family, when they do things together in a way that a child can feel, I'm adding value, I'm important, that builds a self-esteem that will be, again, part of the brain's development. But we see today, because the kids are treated like they should just live in a fantasy, have no responsibilities, then they also have a lot of self-value kind of issues. And that will foster depression. Also, again, when you're suicidal, it's also because you don't see your place in the world. You feel disconnected and you're not being productive. So when you build this in a child, as an adult, they will have, it will be so much easier for them to find ways to add value, to connect with others, to also be there for other people instead of thinking, oh, what about me? Like, they will see, how can I be there for you? Because this is how we feel valuable, right? So, but kids today, they need to be trained, because it's been now for a couple of generations, for the most part in the West, it has been eradicated. So self-worth issues are not a big thing in the rest of the world. You will not find that as much in Africa or Asia, or because kids have more responsibilities. They can even be making their parents proud by getting good grades, but they feel they're adding value to their families. Right, so this experiment in the West where kids are just do whatever, and be happy, it makes kids unhappy, depressed, and unproductive. It's more difficult to find their place because they're taught that only their good feelings is what they should be looking for, because they have been validated whenever they feel good. That's not being productive, right? So kids are then taught behaviors that will lead them to depression and to not take part in society. And you see also so many young people today, they're not really taking part in society. They kind of fall to the wayside because of this, right? So trying to make kids happy and for no reason at all is not unconditional love. It's abuse. And as a society, we need to get things back on track. I talk a lot with parents about how they can, be smarter in how they bring their kids to maturity and making them successful in life. And this is just one of many aspects of what parents can do. It's important, though, that we understand that the experiment that we've had in the West for the last, 2 generations, it has not worked. We need to go back to more classic values, and we need to educate our kids. We need to make them think and feel, be productive, add value, take responsibility, and not let them just do whatever, because nobody will ever reach happiness that way.
All right. We actually have a couple questions on YouTube, so we'll take one of those now. Any advice for a family where the person writing the question is in the new paradigm, but the rest of the family seems to be in the old paradigm, and being together seems to be quite difficult?
Yes. Now, if you experience yourself as the one in the more mature consciousness, then you have the responsibility. Because it's for you then to recognize that you have to let go of your expectations. Back to as we talked about earlier, that we have a tendency to believe that our family owes us something, that they should be responsible for our survival and our well-being, and they're not. So in a higher consciousness, it is expected that you fully take the responsibility for your own journey and your own healing, and to set people free from your own expectations. Meaning that you can see your family members and have absolutely no expectations, no needs, that they're beings, they're people on their own journeys, doing their own thing, trying to figure things out. And you're supposed to be in the state of having let go of your attachments. When you are in a higher state, you're supposed to be able to give them love unconditionally and not react. I talk about reaction a lot because it's such a key to understand the human psyche. But when you decide to not react, they can say and do whatever, and you will just love them. The moment you have an expectation, you think that they are responsible for something in your life, whatever they do, which is different from your expectations, you will react. And families do this a lot, and it's not productive. So if you're in a higher level of consciousness, it's your job to simply see them as free, authentic beings. Your job is to love them no matter what, support them no matter what, be there for them no matter what, and just have no needs whatsoever. Because then you can just be with them, right? Instead of going into these conflicts. And everyone has the right to be where they are. You cannot have spiritual growth by committee, right? It's like where someone is in their journey, in their level of consciousness, is simply a fact. When we begin to wake up, we stop having opinions about other people and what they do, because they are expressing their level of consciousness and their absolute exact point of evolution. And there's no alternative to that. But you stop judging it because, again, you don't have any expectations. You will only judge when you have an expectation, and that person will behave and express themselves based on their actual point of evolution, although your expectation requires that they are someone else or somewhere else. So when you pull that away, there is nothing to react to, because they are behaving perfectly according to their consciousness and point of evolution. And then it's not a problem at all. And when you can then mirror that, right? When you can be the higher mirror, and this is the thing, the person with the highest consciousness always have the responsibility to be the adult in the room. Think of people seeing themselves in a certain way. We all have stories. We all have definitions. We all live in our own, story. Now, how we mirror is based on our state of consciousness. So, for instance, if you have a lot of self-negativity and someone talks to you, you will amplify the self-negativity because that's what you're filled with, which means that that will be the color that is more visible in you as a mirror. So when someone is then mirroring themselves in you, they will start to feel more self-negativity because that's what they see in the mirror, right? It's basically, think of you standing in front of the mirror and it amplifies your nose. right? It will be 10 times bigger. You will see your nose very clearly. If you have a person obsessed with everything is noses, right? You will see your nose being a lot bigger in that mirror. It's kind of like that. So your state of consciousness, what you're filled with, that will be what you amplify in whatever people are projecting onto you. So often in a family, therefore, we will be confirming each other's negativity stories because we're kind of on the same page. So when you grow out of it, it's your job to be the higher perspective. Think of you being the higher mirror. So you will not be reflecting back their self-negativity. Even when someone is, negative, you may only mirror back love, acceptance, and the higher kind of frequencies. So they will see themselves in a different light. Because think of, you have the power to not mirror back. So if you operate here and that, then you move yourself up as a mirror there. Only the higher frequencies will be reflected back to them. And it means no matter what they throw at you, they will have an experience of love and acceptance. And subconsciously, this will start to influence them. So, if you see yourself as someone in a process of awakening, you have the responsibility. And not just say that, well, I'm way past, that level. Well, prove it. And the way you prove it is by being able to be in it without reacting. Because if you react, you're not done with it. This is one of the illusions that many people have in spirituality. They feel, oh, my family is triggering me so much, but I'm in high consciousness. If you're triggered, you're not done with the karma. Because if you were, you would not be triggered, because then there wouldn't be anything there. That's simple. So we want to live in our own illusion about higher consciousness by not being mirrored in such a way that we're triggered into our own reactions. When we react, there's something there. And we don't want to be reminded of that. So, the proof of us actually having grown past the family karma is the ability to be in the middle of it all and to have no reaction whatsoever, to not be triggered. And whatever people throw at us, we will simply reflect love and acceptance and joy and whatever else. So, that's the homework. Yeah.
We have a question in the audience.
Yes, so I was wondering if we were to create new relationships and we don't want to recreate our family traumas and our family karma in those new relationships, is this a key to work with? And I do understand that it's impossible to be totally free from it. There will always be a certain amount of the karma in our new relationships as well. But could there be like more of a balance? And
Yes.
also, do you have any more concrete tips?
A lot of them. But, the thing is, as I explained, because of how we are brought up, believing that the family is responsible, right? It's easier to move out of that pattern with other people. Often what we do once we're in a relationship, we define them as family because it feels, and then we transfer that complex onto the relationship. So the trick is, I know this is difficult for people, but don't do that. So it's basically trying to reinvent the concept of family in our relationships, to not kind of copy and paste that because once we do, we're trapped, right? When we're able to look at our family and say, okay, that stays there. And also practice, I'm responsible for my healing. I'm responsible for my needs. Other people are responsible for injuring me. That you can bring into your relationship, because that's going to happen, right? But then you will not be surprised. You will embrace it, understanding that, yeah, with this person, I will be mirrored in new ways. There will be new dynamics. And I will be hurt in new ways, which I want. And then it's my job to heal. And I can also, so to have an active understanding of what's going on and see the potential and aim for that. Because when we don't, when we're passive, the brain will always apply existing patterns and existing templates. But back to the principle that I talk about, we can either wait for the future or we can create it. Once we decide what we want and we train ourselves into new behaviors, we may be able to establish relationships not based on our kind of family templates. Because for most people today, that's harmful. Right? As I say, because we are growing faster, we are trying to grow past the family karma and become someone else than we were in the beginning. Because in the beginning, when we incarnate, we're supposed to be kind of shaped by the family. We're kind of growing into the karma, growing into the expressions, and that template. And then, for the journey of this lifetime, hopefully we become someone completely different by the end of it. In the old days, you were supposed to just stay in that space and you would become the spitting image of your parents. Now, we want to move away from that for as much as possible, not just to move away, but to become who we are, beyond the mold, beyond the expectations of others and all of that. But that takes work, because we can't just run away, which is often what we do when we're immature. We recognize there's something in me, I'm not this, and then we run away. But then we're not dealing with the karma, so it's not growth. And you see that a lot with people who are just like, oh, I don't want to be with my family. And they turn out to be narcissistic assholes, because they are running away from every relationship, showing them what they need to work on. Right? What people also bring into relationships today, oh, I want to be appreciated. No, that's not what a relationship is for. It's to show you that there's room for improvement, and then working with someone to achieve that. Right? That's how we grow together, in functional relationships. As hopefully you all know, it's a workplace, and there's work, and then there's more work, and is always being shown room for improvement. This is what it is. And us wanting to change even when we don't want to emotionally, and adapting to this other person and maturing. Right? So relationships today can offer enormous growth. And we have to see that life journey as us trying to accelerate our growth. But then we need to change, we need to adapt, and we can't just continue, we can't just repeat. So every relationship, every space should be a complete reinvention. And really try to see, like, okay, what's the mirror here? What can I develop in myself? And who may I become that is more authentic? So working with family today it's not just one thing. It's not just, your biological family or the family that you grew up in. There's all these spaces that offer kind of intimate work, intimate mirroring to both present us with injury and healing. And like learning to heal, learning to become a healing person, and apply healing to ourselves, and then become a healing presence to others. That is such a gift, right? We have to learn to get past ourselves and our own addiction to suffering, and learning to heal for real. And it's not even difficult. Healing, the essence of healing is us letting go of our own version and embracing the version that is closer to reality. Now, the thing is that, also part of what's going on in families, because in the human genome, we have a sense of hierarchy. And as I've always said, that the ultimate truth, when that is owned by someone, that's the ultimate power. So we see power as the ability to define what reality is. And also being able to then decide the outcome of other people's behaviors and actions based on our own sense of reality. That is what power is. So in a family where we're also competing, we also want to ensure our own position, and the families where we practice, there's a constant fight and conflict over who owns truth. This is also why part of it is everyone throwing their definitions at each other. Because once you own the definition, you are like this, you're like that. That's how you have power. This is also why we feel so violated. For instance, when the family tries to define us. Well, you're like this. No, I'm not. And then there's a huge fight. Because whoever owns reality has the power. And, in families, traditionally that would be, the elders. It will be like grandpa, grandma, like they would really have that authority to define who everyone is and what reality is, and everyone would have to comply. That is power. Is also why you could have old people, they could barely walk, do anything, but they had all power because they owned reality. And you will find this in families all over the world, right? When you have figured out how to, you have understood what reality is, this is what the family is. This is therefore how you are and what you need to do to fit in, right? That is power. And today we want to be self-defined from the inside, right? And this is in spiritual awakening where your conflicts with the family will explode. Because, power in family is who defines each other. And you can see so many family conflicts are really about projecting definitions onto each other. You're like this. No, you're like that. You should change. No, you should. And when we start connecting with something from the inside, we feel that all definitions thrown at us from other people, no matter what they are, it feels icky. And we have to get away from it. Until we understand. Until what is inside has become real to us. Because then we can look at other people's definitions and it's just like, well, that belongs to them. That's their thought. That's how they need to see me in their own narrative. And it's got nothing to do with me. So then you let them. Because it doesn't affect you. Right? And this is also the thing when it comes to spiritual work. A lot of it still, among humans, is so primitive because, I have to be myself, I can't be with my family. Sure, that means that you haven't figured it out yet. Right? That you're still so triggered by the definitions coming from other people that you can't stand it. And it means, you are in contact with something, but it has not matured. You have no idea what it is. Because if it was real to you, you would be able to love unconditionally. You would be able to have patience and compassion with other people even attacking you, because you can say, well, that's something happening inside of them. I'm not part of it. Right? So in many ways, being with family is the ultimate test of consciousness. Right? Because when you can truly recognize that, this is their journey. I'm here to love them. And no matter what happens, that's what you do. That's who you are. That's when you know that, okay, I'm actually going somewhere here, right? So this is what we all need to kind of practice. Understand that we are all family, ultimately. And when we wake up spiritually, we begin to connect with all life as family. We can feel this sense of intimacy and togetherness and connectedness with every single person we meet. All life, animals, plants, no matter what it is, the planet, the universe. And we feel the same. And we feel that unconditional love. And we can feel this exchange because we recognize that behind all this karmic work, there is only love. No matter how horrific the family karma is, it's just group work, it's just a group study. Behind all of it, there is only love. The only reason why you incarnate with other beings, other people, is love. It's because you know each other so well from your different lifetimes, and you understand how to support each other in growing for real, how to poke, how to inflict the correct injuries to trigger the most beneficial healing processes. There is only love. So back to how we define each other based on how we react and all that. Once you truly open your heart, once you begin to wake up and you see past it, and you see that we're all connected, we're all family, and it's all just love. The rest is how we actively help each other. So for this Christmas and these holidays, try to connect with the universal family of consciousness, seeing that we're all the same. We're all cells in the same body of oneness. We're all God trying to experience itself. And try to see other people like that. Try to see their journeys. Try to see where they are in their evolution. And try to have an active experience of connecting to all life. So treat everyone as family, because ultimately they are. Try to support everyone because they need it. Try to always mirror back the highest potential. See the expressions of pain, see the expressions of the frustration of not being able to play the piano the right way, and love them. Always try to mirror the acceptance of the love and the encouragement for whatever they're trying to figure out. Right? Because ultimately that's what we should do in a family. That's what we'll learn when we're wise. Often when we have grandkids, we're a little wiser than we were with our own kids. And seeing them as beings, seeing how they are unfolding, what's inside of them, like the person that is about to become, someone in their own right, and encouraging that. So with everyone and everything, try to move into this state of family love. Because the universal love, the universal family, is also holding you, is loving you, is nurturing you, always have, always will. And as we grow up spiritually, it's not like we're not setting ourselves free from family. We grow into it even more because we recognize the entire universe as a family of beings still trying to figure out everything, still trying to be themselves. And we find our place. And we just want to love. We just want to nurture. And we are in this wonderful exchange of unlimited everything. including love, including resources, including everything that you could possibly dream of. It's all about you raising your consciousness and understanding that every space of family is basically where you train yourself. It's where you learn about yourself, about your karma, about your journey, about your potential. It's up to you to use these spaces to transform and to become someone who can bring value, who can bring healing, who can bring love to absolutely every single being in life. So every space of family, they're all trying to train you for you to reach the highest potential in this life, to reach the highest consciousness available to you, and for you to give back, and for you to then nurture the love and potential in others. So focus on this holiday. And experience everything as this wonderful exchange of love. Everyone's family. Everyone's learning. And everyone's God just trying to figure out itself.
Thank you so much, IKYA, and thank you all here in the studio audience, and especially you on YouTube who were so patient with us tonight. Studying with IKYA, everything we do is basically life trying to teach us something. And tonight, the lesson that I want to give to you is keep your software updated, which means basically, keep your mind open, keep your version, your story about yourself and your life, keep updating it. Because otherwise it's going to get out of date and cause some major problems with your operating system. And so with that, we say thank you so much again for joining us for IKYA Live throughout this entire year in 2024. We wish you a beautiful holiday season, walking your own path, but also taking all this beautiful teaching that IKYA has given us tonight to really lift and love our families, our friends, our communities, and our whole world as we go through this holiday season. We wish you a beautiful time and look forward to seeing you in 2025. Our next episode of IKYA Live is on the 20th of January. Until then, be well and celebrate.